This weekend saw Canada's biggest tournament return after a 3-year hiatus, as Smashers descended upon GOML 2022, a 753-player tournament in Toronto, Canada that matched some of the best Canadian talent with most of the top talent from the east of the United States. Dating back to Genesis 8 in April, there have been 8 major tournaments in North America, and none of the winners of the previous 8 were in attendance at GOML 2022, which left the door open for a bevy of new competitors. Those competitors broke down the door instead. We'll take you through all the action and the upsets from the weekend in our GOML 2022 recap. Now, if you had a nickel for every time we talked about a Prodigal Steve main going on a deep bracket run at a major tournament seemingly out of nowhere, you would be up to 5 nickels, as Onin adds himself to the list of Akola, Jake, Yanni, and Didi of Steve players who have beaten some of the best players in the world before they can even have their first legal sip of alcohol. Onin, formerly known as Pocket, was a Wi-Fi warrior with an incredibly deep bag of characters. Back in 2019 and through the lockdown period, he was known best for his Rob, Joker, and Robin. He had lots of success, taking sets off of players like Colonies, Capitancito, Deathspade, and Ven prior to Steve's release. In mid-2021, he started using Steve as a secondary, and by the end of the year, Steve was his primary character. He's taken off since then. Despite having just recently turned 16, he's raised through just about all of his Midwestern competition this year. In the lead up to GOML, Onan won Combo Breaker, Cost 2022, and got second at Warp Zone, only losing to Ned. That, for the record, was in the Sephiroth matchup, often regarded as one of Steve's worst. Despite the increased competition level and bigger stage, this weekend was no different. Onan was the 7th seed and swept through Larry Lurr and Legrimus before surviving Game 5 sets with Big D, Cola, and Riddles, including a reverse 3-0 in winner's quarters against Big D. With a 3-1 grand finals drubbing in the run back against Big D, it was all over, and Onan and Steve took their biggest North American bracket to date. Onan debuted at number 65 on the mid-season Orion rank, but won't be on the upcoming spring PGRU, spoilers, due to attendance requirements, as he didn't make it to any majors during the season. It's safe to say that this isn't going to be the case for the next season, though. Onan is playing at an insane level right now. This new wave of Steves doesn't really care what shots you take at them. They'll be too busy mining behind a 3-block-tall wall. So, who's the player best equipped to fight a 16-year-old piloting Steve? How about a Canadian mountain of a man with a career that's been going on for almost as long as Onan's been alive? Big D played Ice Climbers in Melee, but gained prominence as a DDD main in Brawl with a strong secondary Ices. In Smash 4, he was a very good DDD player, the best in North America and second to only Zaki for the title of the best in the world. Lest you think that he could only pilot the weird characters, though, he would occasionally embarrass high-level players with his Falcon as well. But when Ices returned, Big D ascended to PGR status, being ranked 49th on the PGRU V2. Despite flashing a Peach and a Falcon in Ultimate's early days, Big D now plays pretty much solo Ice Climbers, for richer and for poorer, in sickness and against zoners, I guess. At GOML, he blew through the bracket with a vengeance. He beat Burst and Soar, 2 strong Canadian players, before running into Onan. He squeaked into top 8 with a win over Zanotto, and the run just kept going. 3-1 over Aaron, 3-0 over Syrup, 3-1 over Cosmos, and a 3-0 sweep over the King of Canada himself, Riddles, put Big D into Grand Finals. He played slowly and methodically, using strong positioning to trap anyone who made even the slightest mistake, proceeding to blow them to pieces with the perfect combo. The commentators made sure to note that there was no way that many players had played an Ices on Big D's level before, and that he must have had matchup experience on his side. While that might be true, that's partially because Big D is that far ahead of any other Ices player in North America. He 3-stocked Aaron and 2-stocked Syrup, Cosmos, and Riddles twice each, and was even schmoving a little bit with Sopo. Okay, technically, with the ult that Big D uses, it's Solo Nana, but Sona sounds cringe, so get over it. Big D was seeded 15th coming into the tournament, meaning that his run to second earned him a +6 SPR, the highest of the tournament. His run also represents Ice Climber's best ever placement at a major. This is actually the largest tournament where Ice Climbers finished in the top 2 in any Smash major since Wobble's legendary run at EVO 2013 in Melee. Despite its massive place in Smash history, that tournament actually had fewer entrants than GOML 2022, with GOML at 753 to EVO's 709, but is classified as a super major as all 5 Melee gods were in attendance. Those 2 runs are the only 2 in the history of Smash Bros. Where the Ice Climbers were able to make top 2 at a major, breaking huge ground for Big D and low-tier mains everywhere. Syrup, the 14-year-old Ness main from New Jersey, has been a fast-rising star in the world of Smash Bros. GOML was a huge breakout for the kid as he finished 5th after being seeded 21st, enough for a +4 SPR. Syrup beat Cosmos, Ouch, Non, and Gogeta, the Saudi Arabian Falco who was fresh off of a win over Send, to make top 8 winner's side. He couldn't keep the magic going into Sunday afternoon though, where he was beaten by both Riddles and Big D, but Syrup's 5th place finish was a new peak for yet another top tri-state talent. Syrup's very technical style of Ness has become more popularized as of late with the use of Fly Magnet, a tech where you can use the hitbox on Ness's down B to link into pretty much whatever you want, transforming Ness into a character that can blow you up off of one hit. This makes matchups like Aegis or Wolf, which would seem tough at first due to their range and power, much more doable thanks to the ability to convert stocks of what seems like stray hits. As their punish games have developed, Ness mains have only become scarier, carving out a real niche in Ultimate's meta despite the rise of Fighters Pass 2. With new threats like Syrup and Atata, who took out Send at GOML, coming to the scene and traveling more and more, it's getting ever more important to be prepared for the PK Kid in bracket. 3 players ranked in the top 5 of the Riyadh Saudi Arabian power rankings came to Canada to prove that they could compete with the best, and while none of them made top 32, they proved that they were threats. Greninja main the Gertigs finished 129th, not quite making it out of his pool, and Snake and Roy main Zozef, fresh off of his 2nd place finish at the Riyadh Smashers 100, finished 97th. But Gogeta, the Falcon player, ranked 3rd, went off. Gogeta was seeded 140th and upset Zeful, Vargus, and Sen to make top 48, where he eventually fell to Syrup and Canadian Shulk player Elijahman. His upset of Send had an upset factor of 8, making it the largest of the tournament. Gogeta has been performing very well this year, as his 33rd place finish at GOML comes on the heels of a 2nd place finish at Riyadh Smashers 100, Saudi Arabia's biggest Smash tournament yet. Gogeta's performance at his first overseas tournament is another sign that Smash is a truly international game, and you can't sleep on anybody, no matter how under the radar their scene might be. Gogeta's run was good for a +4 SPR, and he was one of just 8 players to make top 48 with an SPR of at least +3, meaning they outplaced their seed by at least 3 rounds in loser's bracket. 3 of those 8 were top 8 finishers who we've already covered in Onin, Big D, and Syrup. Let's take a look at a few other high achievers who made it into top 48. British Columbia Mega Man main Mafuz, that's a tongue twister, +5 SPR tied Onin for the 2nd best of the event. This was just his 4th tournament of at least 200 players dating back to 2019's Battle of BC3, and he was coming off of a 65th place finish, 0 SPR, at Battle of BC4 just a few weeks ago. He was able to take out DK Bill before sending Smock, a Snake and Wolf player who's topped the last 2 editions of the Montreal Power Rankings, to losers behind a 3-1 win. That upset factor 5 win was just one of 8 such upsets all weekend, and of the players to make those upsets, Mafu's 17th place finish was the best. 2 other players matched Gogeta's 33rd place finish and +4 SPR, Shucky and Lop567. Shucky hails from one of the more isolated Canadian scenes in New Brunswick, and as such this was his first major of the post-lockdown period. In the meantime, he had been putting in work, regularly winning New Brunswick locals with his Palutena and Min Min. Shucky had a C-tier win under his belt pre-lockdown at the 209 entrant Kings of Halley 4 in April 2019, but this was his best major performance since, a significant improvement over his 129th place finish at GOML 2019. Lop567, a Palutena player from Toronto, benefited from Sonic's DQ as part of a 4-set win streak through winner's bracket before falling to JW and Soar. Connecticut Pac-Man main Kiwi put together her best performance of the post-lockdown era at GOML after finishing 97th at both Collision 2022 and Pound 2022. After falling to Goblin in winners, Kiwi rattled off 3 straight wins in losers, culminating with an upset over Supergirl Kells. That's her best win at a major since she took down JW at CEO 2019. And her +3 SPR at GOML goes down as her best in an offline tournament of at least 200 players, the best run of her strong Ultimate career. So, in a tournament with Steve, PGR players, and white-hot phenoms, who do you think won the doubles bracket? We at PGstats would like to introduce you to Linus and Lucy, better known as the Twins. While doubles isn't the most popular metagame, GOML doubles had 126 teams sign up for a chance at the title, including teams like Cosmos and Non, Atata and Send, and Riddles and Tilde. And while all of those players individually finished 33rd or better, the doubles crown went to Lucy and Linus, who finished 49th and 65th respectively. The Twins played 5 sets with no games dropped until they finally lost their first game to the team of Demon and the eventual singles champion Onin in winners finals. They played 9 total games against Demon and Onan and won both of their sets to win the tournament. This is another doubles trophy for Linus and Lucy after they won Warp Zone and Let's Make Big Moves earlier this year. If you've never watched Ultimate Doubles before and you've been looking for a way to begin enjoying this cool and unique fighting game format, there might not be anybody better capable of showing what's possible than Linus and Lucy. Next week, our attention will shift to the desert, where Las Vegas will host the most stacked major we've seen in a while in Double Down, featuring the return of MKLeo to the United States among many, many more. PGstats will be with you every step of the way for Double Down and the rest of the summer of Smash, so subscribe and ring that bell right now. I've been Last. I do so hope you've enjoyed this video, and as always, I'll see you next time.